everyone, it's Theresa and welcome to my channel. If you are new coming over from the playlist, today is part of Heidi Sonboul DIYs playlist, and don't forget to check out her channel and the playlist, which will be listed below. So first we're going to start off with one of these paint stir sticks. You're going to need, I believe, a total of 7, and then 3 of the Dollar Tree wrapped canvases. We're going to tear it all apart. I know, big surprise, right? Basically just take off the canvas off of all 3 of them, and we are making a tray. We're doing like full-blown classic farmhouse today with, as you probably could tell from the thumbnail, with things that you probably have. At least if you're a crafter, you probably have these. So, like I said, we're just going to pull all of that stuff off of there, and what I would definitely recommend, don't even worry about the nails. They're going to be there. I'm not too concerned about them at all. So once we have that all done, see here we've got all 3 of them. We've got our paint stir sticks that are all cut down, and I did use my miter shears, just so you know, if you ever try to do it, you have to give it a pretty good amount of force, or you pull it up like towards you, like up. And that'll give it the, the give it the leverage it needs. I am going to cover the staples on one of my canvas frames. That way, this is going to be kind of the one that's facing upward that you're going to actually be able to see. If they show a little, I'm not worried about it. This is going to be really rustic. And then we're going to go ahead and give everything a good coat of the antique wax. This one is from Folk Art, and I am a plaid ambassador. And so we're going to go ahead and do that to the frame as well. Now on the frame, the only one I was worried about doing the top part of is the one that's going on the top. In fact, you try not to get the actual wax on most of the other part of it, like the part that you're actually going to put your glue on, because it won't work great with the hot glue. So just to, I wouldn't worry too much about it, but definitely don't do it on purpose. And I'm going to do a full coating of that wax on all of the outside parts as well. So, the part that you're going to see on the very outside and the part that you see on the inside of the tray. And like I said, all of that's just going to get a full coating of the antique wax. And I like to use the baby wipe, especially in a project like this where you're just like, let's just zoom on through it, because big surprise, we're going to distress it too. So just the baby wipe seems to help. It lays it down really easily, wipes it off like in the same, stroke. So now that we have all of the stuff is all painted, or however you decide to do it, you may decide to paint everything. We're going to do kind of like in a dabbing motion. We're going to cover it with some wood glue. What I'm doing by doing it this way is we're going to leave spots for you to put the hot glue. This way you're not overlapping it. One thing I've noticed, if I overlap my hot glue and my wood glue, the hot glue doesn't stay hot very long. So just push it together, and then you're going to try to wipe off the excess on the outside part. It won't be hard because of the wax. It's just, that way it looks a little bit nicer. I mean, this is going to be obviously very rustic and rough, as you can tell by here. It's okay though, because we're going to cover it all up. I'm just going to show you one of these as well. Same idea. I'm just going to put down the wood glue, and I'll leave space for the hot glue. So for anyone who is new to this whole idea of gluing your stuff together, the wood glue is for the longevity, and then of course your hot glue is for that immediate hold, because ain't nobody got time for waiting for glue to dry. So we're just going to put down our hot glue on the little in-between spots. Try to work quickly, because obviously it's going to, start to cool down and won't stay on as well. So like I said, I'm not going to put you through watching all of it. And I did add a couple of pieces down for support on the bottom. I ended up adding 2 more on the sides of the bottom as well, so it would be level. It was kind of, wobbling. So, and I'm saying so a lot. I'm so sorry. I can't help it. All right. We'll go ahead and put the same idea down where we're doing our gluing. I'm sorry that I showed it to you like 5 times, but apparently I wanted you to see it. So we're going to do that same thing, putting down our glue. Now we're, oh, sorry, hit the camera. we're just going to put down the bottom part of our tray, and here it is kind of all assembled. We're going to do a little bit of distressing though. I'm going to add this white, it's plaster paint colored from Waverly. This little container, it is like almost gone. I have a backup, so don't be alarmed. But we'll do that, and I'm just going to brush it on. I'm not going really heavy on it. I didn't want it to be too stark. I tell you what, I really like going really heavy on it if I do like an oak color, like a deep dark brown, but I didn't want to go quite so heavy on it with this particular color brown. So you'll see here it's all finished, but we're going to add in a little bit of that antique wax back to the spots that are a little too stark. I felt like it didn't blend in as well, and I don't know, I wasn't feeling it, the overall look of it, so I wanted to add some of that back on. We're going to do some handles next. Now, if you do not have this, this is the leather ribbon, the faux leather ribbon from Dollar Tree. I bought it in bulk online because I knew I wanted it and I knew I loved it. But if you don't have it, you can use any ribbon, you can use rope. You have a lot of options when you're coming to, making your handles. I glued it together with some tacky glue, and I marked on my tray kind of like at the, I believe, the 3 and the 5-inch mark, because this is an 8x10. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that earlier. This is an 8x10 frame, we'll call it. And now we're just going to put down our pieces of that faux leather strap. And now I'm taking some push pins, and these I actually painted in that same plaster color because I have the silver and I have the gold, but I wanted it to be dulled down, and I figured this was going to be the best way to do it. So I painted in the plaster color, and now I'm just going to coat it down with some of the antique wax, and that's going to really take to that paint much better than it would if it was taking to the metal. And I'll do that, of course, on both sides, and I will show you the final reveal. Here it is. It looks great. I love it. I think it couldn't be better. More, super rustic. Next one, we're going to use one of these long signs from the Dollar Tree. Obviously, this guy has been around for a while. I'm going to give a good coat of that chalk paint to the one side, but first we're going to work on getting it to be a little bit more stable, you know what I mean? Like trying to get it to where it's not so bowed and wonky. I saw this technique from my good friend Connie at Connie's Nails and Creations. I could be getting her channel name wrong. I will link her for you below, though. That way you can go check her out. But we're just going to basically use these skewers. These are some really long skewers from Dollar Tree. And be careful when you're cutting them with your miter shears. They kind of go everywhere. We'll just do a nice long run of hot glue, and then you'll put down your skewer, and you're going to basically make a frame all across it to give it a little more added support and try to keep it from bowing too much. And again, don't forget, before I forget to mention it again, don't forget to go check out Heidi Sonboul DIY. I'll have her channel linked below, as well as, of course, I'll have the playlist linked for you. There's going to be a lot of really fun creations coming up. You're going to love them. So here's how it looks now that it is all assembled on the back. And I've got, I already did a coat of the chalk paint, and I realized that that little scarecrow guy had kind of like some indentation areas, if that makes sense to you. So I was like, well, darn it. What I did instead, though, I decided I was going to take that same paint that I started off with, the Rust-oleum chiffon cream, and I added some baking soda to it. And what it's going to give it, I added actually quite a lot of baking soda, so it's going to give it a much more textured look, almost like stucco in my mind. It's like a little bit like stucco. So I just thought that this was going to be kind of like the best way to remedy this situation, since I decided to paint the front of it, not thinking about that it had an indentation. So if if you want to do this route, or if you want to have a nice smooth paint surface, I would certainly recommend using the back of your sign. If not, if you're happy with this more rustic, bumpy chalk paint, then go for it. Just like I said, I just added a bunch of baking soda to the paint. Obviously, you don't want to put it in your container because you would have nothing but baking soda chalk paint. And I'll do this and give it a full coat of it. And one thing I'm going to need a little wreath, but I have this tiny little one. It came in like a 2-pack, I think, from Dollar Tree, and it was definitely going to be too big. So I'm going to remove the outside ring, just taking my wire cutters. It needs just a little bit of work back and forth, and those little wires will break. And of course, we're going to save it because you never know when you might need it. And I'm going to take a whole bunch of these little boxwood plants. I believe I got this from Walmart. You can get, I want to say this is probably either 1 or 2 bunches. So it's not even like it's, you know, tons and tons of it, but it's pretty decent amount. And I'm just going to pull it off all of those picks. And we're going to start putting it into our wreath, and I'm going to hot glue it as I go. This is going to end up being a gift for my sister-in-law, so I definitely want for it to stay put. I don't want it to go, you know, I don't want them to fall out and her have to figure out what to do, have her, you know, 2-year-old son running around with it, putting it up his nose or who knows what. 2-year-old boys do some crazy things with the things they find on the floor, if you didn't know that. All right, so I'll just continue along the way, and I'm kind of keeping them all going in the same direction. And my thought process was, I was like, well, I can, you know, add more in as I go if I need to, or if you want to add in like a little pops of color, that would be gorgeous, like some yellow or some blue. It would be super, super cute. And see, I'm adding just a couple little pieces if I felt like it needed to have something added to cover up that metal part of the wreath. And if you can see a little bit of it, it's not a real big deal. You know, we're just taking it easy today, making some crafts. Like I said, I kind of just filled in wherever it needed. And now I've got the full piece, and I did use my Cricut to cut out these letters. Now, what's nice is that they're so blocky that you can easily print these out on your computer at home and just cut them out yourself if you don't have a Cricut. Or you can even, you know, paint them on, handwrite them on, you know, whatever makes it easiest for you. Now, I will say, I would not say that Mod Podge is the best way of going about putting these letters on. They are kind of like a real thick cardstock, so I was like, oh, Mod Podge would be a good choice. It did not want to stick to this paint. So just start off with the hot glue. It's definitely the best route. I had to go through and put in some hot glue to get it to all stick. And then I was like, you know, those letters are a little too stark, a little too perfect. So I'm just going to do a very, very light dusting with that same the same plaster paint from Waverly that we used, I think, on the last DIY. Except, like I said, the background is a little different. The background is the chiffon cream, but that's okay. And now I will just put a hefty amount of hot glue on the ring, and we're just going to fix it down. I drop it a little bit, and I was like, well, I don't know the best way to put this down. And I'll fix a couple little branches that might have come loose. And I do end up fixing that little piece on the side that's kind of poking out too much. I did fix that, don't worry. And now I'm just going to add a little bow to the top. Felt like it just needed a little more touch of something. And once we have done that, it is all done. Here it is, super pretty. I know she is just absolutely going to love it. On to our very last project. It's super, super easy. We're going to start off with one of these glass containers from Dollar Tree, because what farmhouse video is not complete without a glass container of some kind? Now, I did give it a full coat of the Waverly chalk paint in plaster, and now I'm going to go through and wet distress it. And it's so funny because I actually dried it off first with my heat gun, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm going to distress it. What is I thinking? So we're just going to do that first just to get a good amount of it off. My thought process here is that I'm actually going to put a candle inside of it, so I do want some of the glass showing, you know what I mean? That way, as the candle is lit, you'll be able to see it, and it'll be really, really pretty. And now I'll put on just a little bit of the antique wax. I'm just going to brush it on really lightly with one of these little sponge brushes. I wanted, of course, to highlight all of that beautiful detail. And it's so funny. I'm actually recording this the day before it's going live. And I actually just watched Sammy from Unicorn Dust Design. She just hauled this, and she's like, oh yeah, I saw Theresa picked it up in a haul. And I sent her a message on there. I was like, it's so funny because I'm doing something with it right now. And next we're going to do some twine, some of this cotton twine from Dollar Tree. And I have this little family sign as part of another thing from Dollar Tree. I don't even use it, so just pretend it's not even there. We'll just wind the cotton twine around it a few times, give it a little snip, and I just glue it down, and I'm going to put down like a faux bow. I could have definitely left it and tied it myself, but this is actually like 3 strands of it all together. I thought it was nice, cute, give it a little bit more something to it, you know. It's just a shoestring bow, nothing particularly fancy, and we'll just glue it on there. And then here it is, all finished. Threw the candle in there just to give you kind of like a little bit of an idea. So I hope that you enjoyed today's classic farmhouse projects. And if you are new here, please don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.